I picked up the Xbox at an interesting time. It was pretty much dead. In fact, I think I bought the Xbox right after it was discontinued. So I picked it up for about 130 bucks new. It was one of the very last new Xboxes around. And so I didn't really have much interest, obviously. I didn't have much interest in the Xbox when it was in the heat of its lifetime. At the time I had, as you'll note, I had the PS2 and I had the GameCube, and also I was still kicking around the Dreamcast. And remember, you know, I'm hardcore and I have all these games, so I had a lot of these games, machines, actually set up simultaneously. So I could play the Genesis if I wanted to. You know, I could play the Super Nintendo if I wanted to. I didn't have to play what's current because I never sell anything, clearly. So, you know, the Xbox, when it rolled around, it took some convincing. The same way I bought a PS2 because Virtua 4 just totally made me have to do it, and the way Metroid Prime convinced me to go into the GameCube. What really convinced me with the Xbox, and I said for years before I got the Xbox that I would buy it when Knights 2 came out. When the sequel to Knights, as I mentioned before with the Sega Saturn, when Knights sequel came out, which I assumed would happen on the Xbox of any machine, because it just made sense. It had the graphical power, it had beautiful analog sticks. I just looked forward to it. And I told everyone, because I had friends who were huge fans of the Xbox. When Halo hit, man, the world went nuts. And gamers got involved with first-person shooters like they had not done since, well, for me, Quake 3 on the Dreamcast, and for many, James Bond on the N64, 007, GoldenEye. And so the Xbox really hit hard, particularly in, you know, couch-type multiplayer settings like college. And so everyone's like, dude, what's cracking, man? You're a hardcore gamer and yet you have no interest in this machine. Nothing really convinced me. You know, there was nothing strikingly different that I could not find on my PS2 or my GameCube, or that I just really even had any interest in until Outrun 2. Outrun 2 is my most played Xbox game. I play Outrun 2 a lot. I think Outrun 2 is one of the greatest. It's in my top 5 racers ever. As an arcade racer, it's probably number 1. It is delicious. And the conversion by Sumo, over at Sumo Digital, on the part of Sega AM2, over to the Xbox was just, it's pristine. It's a glorious thing. And so the first game I ever bought for my Xbox was Outrun 2. And it sealed the deal. And then after that, I kind of grew accustomed to the controller, to such an extent that when I would play racing games on my PS2, because the GameCube, though, you know, around at the same time, okay, let's take Dreamcast, unfortunately, off the list. The GameCube, PS2, and the Xbox all lived concurrently. They all just kind of scrummaged together. And so as a big fan of racing games, I was looking at these 3 consoles to scratch my itch. Well, the GameCube wasn't really well served with racing games. Its triggers ended up being pretty weak, just not particularly hot. The PS2, every button was analog. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a lot of hype that the PS2's buttons, all of the buttons, all like 10 of the buttons, were analog. And that's true. They are pressure sensitive. But there's not enough tactile feedback to really make that work for the player. I don't think. So when it comes to racing games, barring, with the exception of Burnout, I would say, which is extremely Twitch-oriented and works best with a digital pad, the PS2 just totally got blown out of the water by the Xbox, which had basically, I mean, it's basically the Dreamcast controller, the Xbox original controller. Well, the Xbox S controller. You know, people said that the Dreamcast controller was too big, just huge, a boat, some people called it. Take a look back at the original Xbox controller. A friend of mine refers to it simply as the hamburger. It's monstrous. It is a monstrous controller. I'm really grateful that they changed that. But the triggers give you, as the player, a ton of feedback, and there's a lot of leeway between what you understand as full acceleration and simply acceleration. Fantastic. Unbeatable. And so it was with the Xbox that I got really involved with racing games. And what's interesting is that, excuse me, my shoe's a little tight. What's interesting is that I really did not like racing games until the Dreamcast, and really until analog control, and really I think something that makes the racing game such a benefactor of 3D hardware, 3D accelerated hardware, as it were. Let's call it that. This new generation. I guess last generation's hardware, is that it really did 3D graphics quite well. So the sensation of flying forward or backward or left or right, the sensation of moving in 3D space was, I think, perfected and fully realized last generation. And so I really got into racing, and that's what really legitimizes the Xbox for me. Knights 2 never came out on the Xbox, you'll notice that, but Outrun did it. You know, Outrun just did it for me. There are other games that are superior on the Xbox that really are worth looking at, and for those of you who were hardcore to the PS2 and have since jumped ship for the Xbox 360, there are a lot of exclusives on Xbox Machine that really make it worthwhile. Probably not as many as the PS2, and if you're an RPG fan, I'm sorry, you're going to have to stick with Sony, or the PS2 specifically, but you know, the Xbox is great, and like I said earlier, you know, they really latched on to electronica culture. So the Xbox just came off. If you look at some of their early games, it's even evident in their character designs, like Fusion Frenzy. If you look at that, that really captured that stretch for the future that the Xbox is really going for. You know, keep in mind, this was the first console that came with a hard drive. This was a big deal, and gamers thought it was ridiculous at the time. Why do we need a hard drive? Now, the idea of not getting a hard drive, in the case of the Wii, has not only proven a bad PR move, but it's actually practically dysfunctional because they have a download service that requires a number of, it eats up a number of your blocks. So they're going to have to find a solution. The hardware is the future because online is the future, and this is where Xbox reigns supreme to this day. Don't forget, Xbox Live started on the Xbox One, the original Xbox, and really came to the fore with things like Crimson Skies, which is an exclusive that played online or off. I've never played it online. Is a gem. Do check it out. Of course, there's Ninja Gaiden. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. And graphically speaking, the Xbox One, take it out of the box. Give it a look. That thing just is amazing. It's a real power horse, and it took a lot for Microsoft to win over the hardcore gamer, and it certainly, Microsoft really benefited from the loss of Nintendo's hardcore because many just ended up sorely disappointed with the GameCube because they refused to give into the dark side, you know, the PS2, and so they were at odds with kind of both of what they'd clung to, and therefore they often, I know a lot of GameCubers who jumped ship to the Xbox 360 upon its release, and it's a great machine. I do have one of those, and it's fantastic. Shame about the failure rate of the hardware itself, but the software library is to date unbeatable. We're just shy of 2009. This could change. I'm just saying. Wow. Yeah, the Xbox has some amazing stuff. And in terms of 2008, 2009 eyes, I think that its software lineup is so solid graphically and in terms of gameplay that it absolutely justifies Microsoft's decision to make a lot of their original Xbox titles available for download on their current Xbox Live service via Xbox 360. Really solid console, and pick it up. Actually, I think Outrun 2 is backward compatible. If you have a 360, do yourself a favor. Just put some Outrun in the disc. You're gonna fall in love if you love. Well, I have a hard time imagining someone not liking it, but I'm sure that person exists. It's so delicious. It's